Outside, of course, uh, the Italians, the Jewish gangsters, the Irish guys. When people think European gangsters, they typically think of like the Cray twins, English gangsters. One of my favorite English gangster movies is Rise of the Foot Soldier. That entire series is incredible. Um, yeah, the Arthur Thompson basically ran Glasgow at a time when it was considered the Chicago of Europe. I mean, the crime rate was astronomical. Arthur Thompson had a vicious reputation. He was basically the face of Scottish organized crime. When I was watching Boardwalk Empire a long time ago, the main character, last name is Thompson, Nookie Thompson, based off of Nookie Johnson. This guy told me something. I don't think it's true, but regardless, it was interesting to hear it. In the show Boardwalk Empire, when Nookie meets with the IRA guys, one of the IRA guys says, Thompson. That's a rather Protestant name. And Nookie basically just brushes it off, laughs it off, accepts it for what it is. Um, that the time period of that show was a little before Arthur Thompson's time, but somebody told me that that was a slight nod to Arthur Thompson, seeing as how he was Protestant, and a guy who tried to kill him was an Irish gangster during his assassination attempt. When he was after the attempt, Arthur Thompson refused to cooperate with the authorities. He had a very much, see nothing, hear nothing, say nothing mentality. So yeah, when people think of Scottish organized crime, he's pretty much the face of it, along with Walter Norval. But it is mainly a toss-up of those two. But Arthur Thompson's legacy is undeniable. There's a movie you need to watch called The Wee Man. It came out in 2013, where there's the Paul Ferris character who was Paul Ferris to Arthur Thompson was essentially considered the son he never had. Arthur Thompson's son who was killed, he dabbled in drugs a lot. But yeah, but Paul Ferris is the main character of The Wee Man. Nick, so what have you learned about the subgenre of Scottish organized crime, the Scottish side of it?
Everyone knows Al Capone. Everyone's familiar with the Chicago outfit. Did you know that Glasgow's razor gangs were recruited by the Chicago mob? And eventually, when the cops caught up with them and deported them back to Scotland, they brought with them all the tools that they learned here.
Right.
One of Al Capone's favorite bodyguards was a guy named Kerr. He actually took him to Florida with him in 1929 after the St. Valentine's Day Massacre to escape that. The Scottish gangsters were no joke.
Oh no, definitely not. They were definitely not, man. I mean, Glasgow had a reputation of, like I said, it was the Chicago of Europe at that time period.
It's also amazing to think they escaped poverty in Scotland only to end up here in the United States during the Great Depression.
Oh yeah, the amount of poverty that was in Glasgow. I mean, when I've seen Walter Norval interviews, he basically said, his thievery as a child was the result of, the terrible economy that Scotland suffered at that time. But you talk about Capone. He had somebody else, to digress a little bit. He was really tight with somebody. He wasn't Scottish. He was of Welsh descent. Murray Humphreys. You ever heard of Murray Humphreys?
The Hump.
Murray Humphreys. Yeah, he was. Well, the thing about Capone is he was basically the face of the American gangster. He employed people regardless of their ethnicity. He like you said, he had a Scottish guy work for him. He was good friends with Murray Humphreys, who was Welsh. He was basically the antithesis of, what would begin as the beginning of the commission, and you had people like Salvatore Maranzano that believed, Sicilian was the only way. Al Capone wasn't Sicilian. He was from the mainland. His family was, but yeah, he had the mentality of, not to sound cliche, but green's the only color he saw.
He had said of Humphreys that anybody can use a gun, but Humphreys preferred to negotiate with cash.
Nobody hustles like the Hump.
That's right, the Hump, the camel.
In the comment section of The Wee Man, they were talking about they need to make an Arthur Thompson movie. To digress to that topic a little bit, They need to make a movie where he's the main character instead of just, kind of the mentor of the main character. Um, like I said, that the majority of like famous gangsters, as far in terms of the movies in Europe, is always the London guys. Of course, Tom Hardy played the Cray twins, both of them,
Yep.
Ronnie and Reggie in Legend. But Rise of the Foot Soldier is
It's very violent.
man, I love that movie. The rewatchability of that one is incredible. Speaking of Capone and like the Scottish connection, no, he had a reputation for he knew how to treat people right. I mean, don't get me wrong, he had a violent reputation, but he kept a lid on it when he needed to. That's I mean, it's funny because Johnson City, Tennessee, has a nickname called Little Chicago, and that's because, and speaking of Florida, it was a midway point between Chicago and Miami. And when he was there, he employed people legitimately and, of course, illegitimately. A lot of the population there descended from the Ulster Scots. A lot of them were involved in bootlegging. Ulster Scots meaning, of course, you know, um, Scottish immigrants who went to Ireland, mainly the north of Ireland, before coming to the United States. Johnson City, a lot of people there were descended from them, and a lot of them worked with Al Capone, who knew him at that time as Al Brown. There's actually a place in Johnson City called Capone's, and there's an estate that's still there to this day called Montrose Court, and
Reputed to be Capone's base of operations in the city, yeah.
that's where he resided whenever he was visiting the midway point between Chicago and Miami. The Dixie Mafia, from what I understand, started in Biloxi, Mississippi. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they had some type of ties to some element of Scottish organized crime, but you know, it wouldn't be based on proximity. So I don't think there is, because of how far away they are. But I could see that possibly being a reality.
If you would like to support the channel, please check out our Patreon, where members will get access to our entire media catalog, including bonus videos, shoutouts, and even get a chance to have your questions answered by Greg. As usual, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.